and welcome to the shop. Today we're going to talk about dust collection and some of the things that I've done across time for improving dust collection in various shops. I've been in very small shops, I've been in attached shops, I've been in basement shops, and now I have my dream shop. So how does that change and impact how you set up dust collection? So it's safe to say that I hate dust, which is in a workshop, something that is sort of part of what you're doing out in the wood shop, making dust anyway. So originally, I've had more than one dust collector across time. I've had two different Oneidas. I started off with a little jet with a dust separator lid. The Penn State Tempest is for my father-in-law after he passed away. I went and put that into the shop. I'm a big fan of cyclones in general, so I've got the Oneida Dust Deputy. I've got one cheap one off of Amazon. The Festool Vacs I think are absolutely outstanding for collecting dust, for working in the house, for working out here, protecting your lungs, etc. I use a couple of dust scrubbers or filters in the shop to try to keep my lungs as healthy as I can. So I've got a couple of pleated filters and a box fan that works outstanding. This one I hang up at the top of the shop. And the one that we're going to spend the most time talking about today is the Harvey G700 dust separator. I've had it for about 3 years. I've been using it a lot for the last 2. So today we're going to talk about how it got into the shop, some of the problems that I had, customer service, some of the modifications that I've made to this particular dust separator to kind of benefit the work that I do, and maybe you'll find some of that information useful. So.
Right about here is where I figured out that I had a problem. So you could tell by the look of the package that it had either been dropped or something was set on it. At this point in time, we were in the middle of supply chain shortages, and I reached out and called Harvey to figure out how they'd like to handle this. If I should just reject it or send it back, or take delivery and take a chance. After speaking with them, they said that if there was any issues, they would go ahead and take care of the package and make it right. So I went ahead and grabbed the package and accepted delivery.
There's one rough-looking crate.
A quick walk around of the machine, and it looked in pretty good shape. There was one small ding on the back, but I was willing to potentially forego that as it was going to be behind a cabinet. So I thought I'd go ahead and get it off of the pallet and take a look to see, if there were any other issues with the machine. There were, but I just didn't know it yet.
Grab that pallet out of there, Cole?
Yeah, you still on it.
Okay. Piece of cake. It has the handle on it. Putting the handle on was a very easy process. Now time to reach down, pull out the power cord, already attached. Come over here, grab some power. And I know safety first, second, third, I don't know, somewhere in there. All right.
This is the clip that I sent Harvey after I fired up the machine. It had what was probably a badly balanced wheel after being dropped. So I sent them this video clip. They were quick to send out another unit. I had another unit on the way that same day, and it arrived about 6 days later. So overall, I took a chance, and they took care of me. In this clip, I'm unpacking the bin that has a couple of accessories in it. So the liners are already installed, the rubber bands that hold the liners are on, the 4-inch to 6-inch separator, a little bit of hoses in there, and some extra bags. And here you can look inside of the machine and you'll see it has a Siemens VFD. The remote is already hooked up. Everything is grounded internally. This is the hose to show how much static pressure we're pulling. Here you'll notice how even the internal hoses are grounded. So this is how I currently have the Harvey set up. So one of the interesting things that I found out, I almost didn't use their clear 6 to 2.4 adapter, but while I was doing, kind of setting up my shop and experimenting with different layouts, etc., I just used that. And one of the things that it did for me is it was, definitely very neat to look at the dust go through. One of the reasons I almost bought a clear view is it let me see how the dust was moving through the system. So the one of the 4-inch lines here serves both of my table saws, both my cabinet saws, and I use this trunk here to go to the overarm guard on that table saw. So it's shared with this battleship of a joiner planer. So my 14-inch joiner planer has a Tersa cutter head. So I do a lot of hand planing work, and it's an absolute joy to use that machine, but it's got a 4-knife long straight cutter head that makes wonderful, wispy shavings off of that machine. One of the problems with the grate on the Harvey itself is it gets clogged up. So I've got very, 14-inch long shavings, or, as long of a board as I'm putting across there, brings them in, and they were getting clogged up on the grate. If I hadn't used that clear elbow, I would have never known that I was losing a bunch of suction until it got clogged. So the main adjustment I've made to this machine is actually removing that grate. Okay, it may be a little difficult to see, but what I did is I just took a jigsaw with a metal cutting blade, and I went in there and cut out that grid that was plugging up on me. It's really well welded on there. They did a great job attaching it. It's actually set in to a couple of slits and then welded on.
So no issue kind of using a jigsaw, cutting it out. Made sure I vacuumed it out so there, the sparks that were happening weren't going to cause a fire, etc. Then I used a Dremel with a grinding disc on it and a sandpaper sleeve, and came back, cleaned it all up so it wouldn't impact airflow. And now I can pass through the joiner or the planer as big of a piece as I'd like, no issues at all. But the thing to know about this style machine is, and keep in mind, is that everything that you collect is going through the fan housing before it gets to the cyclone. So unlike an Oneida or the Penn State, where they push high volume air into the extractor and have most of it go ahead and go into the collection barrels before any of the air goes through the fan, this is exactly the opposite. So this works exactly like your jets or your Harbor Freight dust collectors, that any air coming in has to go through the fan housing before it goes through the dust separator, cyclones, and then out of the filters. So keep that in mind if you're one that likes to pick up screws or nails, or you're vacuuming up your workstation, etc. Everything that you pick up is going to go through the impeller housing, and that does change some of the risk profiles for fire in the shop. So everything is incredibly well grounded. I'm not worried about static electricity. I think that's been pretty well debunked. Inside of the machine, everything is well set up, but just realize that you are going to end up with all of the material, all of the air going through that impeller housing. Okay, to maybe kind of expand on the point that I was making earlier, this is a more traditional cyclone from other suppliers. So Grizzly makes them, Oneida makes them. There are a bunch of people that will talk about which is their favorite. I've had a lot of them. They all work great. So if you'll take a look at the inbound trunk line here, it goes into the body of the cyclone. And the job is to spin all of the material around and then have it come down and deposit into the drum down here. And only, small particles, etc., the ones that we're most worried about for our lungs, end up going out or through the impeller housing and out the filter stack. So, whenever I'm doing a lot of hand tool work and I've got a bunch of plane shavings, etc., those are easy to vacuum up. They swirl around and they get deposited into the drum. The gyro, the Harvey, is different in that every single chip, every single plane shaving, every single screw that you pick up is going to end up going through that impeller housing to get to the collection bins. So I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but it's just something to consider if you work in a place where you're going to be collecting a lot of, or potentially collecting your car keys or the remote to your dust collector, etc. If that gets sucked in there, in this particular case, it just swirls around and drops down into the collection bin. In the Harveys, it's going to go through the fan before it ever, potentially has the opportunity to get into the collection bin. So just something to think about. So you might be wondering, if I already had a cyclone on the wall, why did I end up getting this unit? And the simple answer is that unit at, I think it's a 1.5 horsepower, 220 volt system, just didn't move as much air as I wanted in the shop. It wasn't collecting all the big chips from the joiner planer, etc. So I needed something a little bit more powerful, and I was tempted to go with the Dust Gorilla from Oneida, which I've had and is a great tool. But I also like the form factor of the Harvey. I bought it in 2021. We were right in the middle of some of the pandemic delays for shipping, material delays, etc. So this was in stock, it was available, and I like the idea that I could potentially have this below a bench, etc. So at first, whenever the grates were plugging up with the long shavings, I was a little disappointed. I understand why they put the grate there, especially with that impeller housing, the way it's routed. Removing it, it does everything I've asked it to do. It's as powerful as I need in the shop. I run my drum sander, I run the joiner and the planer, and it barely misses a single chip. The air quality is better using this machine. Overall, I would I would say that I'm impressed. So I have no regrets buying this machine, even though that the design is a little bit different than a traditional Cyclone. Overall, I'm happy. I've got a bunch of, off camera, I've got a bunch of metal ducting that I'm going to go ahead and change up the ducting in the shop. I'm going to move some tools around and actually go with metal ducting, spiral ducting for all the machines. So I would say that it's gonna handle it well. I'm really excited with the ability to build a set of shelves over the top of it and have a little bit more square footage back in the shop. So overall, I do not regret buying the machine. I think it is a great machine. We'll see whenever it's time to replace the filters. I think, you know, the overall filter media is a little on the smaller side compared to some of the others. You know, I've got a 6 foot tall filter on the other one. So yeah, I think time will tell. The cost of the filters, whenever it's time to replace them, will be an important thing to think about. But for the fit, the form, the function of the machine, I'm exceptionally impressed. The way that the team at Harvey handled the issue that I had was exceptional. I had a brand new unit here less than 2 weeks later, and they took care of all the paperwork for shipping it back. They sent the truck. Overall, they handled the complaint that wasn't their issue. It was a shipping related issue exceptionally well, took care of me, and overall I do have to say that I'm impressed. So hopefully you found that helpful, and you may have learned a couple of things you may not have known about some of the different cyclones. And I hope you guys have a great day. Get out to the shop and make something great.